Okay, let's switch over to a little bit about the moon.
Yes.
So a lot of people think that the moon has an influence over our levels of intuition, and I guess that the moon has some sort of mystical powers. And then, of course, you've shared with us that we are now receiving the reflection of the orbs that are surrounding your planet through our moon. Is that correct?
Yes, but again, please, before you ask the question, please, everyone, remember, the idea that it influences you is an old-fashioned, outdated definition. It is a reflection of what's going on with you to give you the ability to understand how to guide yourselves, how to course correct if you so desire. It doesn't influence you in the sense that it controls you. It gives you an opportunity to be aware of a certain kind of vibrational frequency that could benefit you if you allow yourself to become more aware of the guidance that it's reflecting to you.
Okay, and so recently we've had it where both the moon and the sun are up at the same time in the sky.
What do you mean recently? That happens quite often.
I know. I guess I just tuned into it. But I was just wondering about that state and energetically how that connects with the mystical nature of the moon.
Well, it's the balance point. It's the balance point, and that's why you experience it usually at the idea of the full moon, because that is what you experience as the sun and the moon generally being up at the same time when they're on opposite sides, one setting and one rising. But the full moon shows you the opportunity to be at the balance point in the center of that which represents the physical awareness and that which represents the non-physical awareness.
So when we are connecting with the moon and also receiving that reflective energy from your world,
yes,
what is a good state of being to choose to be able to receive that fully? Whatever
excitement and curiosity. The willingness to explore outer and inner reality simultaneously.
So it's really, and it's not necessarily an idea of thought as much as it is an energetic state that you open yourself up to receive that energy.
Of course, because that energetic state will then produce the thoughts that are necessary for further exploration.
And even if it doesn't provide a specific thought or information, you are physically receiving it through light in a sense.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, energy. Yes, vibrations, resonance, of course.
Okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of people have asked questions like, how do you tune into the Akashic records or past lives and things like that. And I think it's all the same idea, isn't it? That
yes. You perceive whatever you are the vibrational state of. But again, it helps to clarify your understanding about how these things actually work physically, how they're actually structured. Again, it begins with the understanding that everything exists at once. And when everything exists at once, then anything is accessible to you if you're on the correct vibration to access that information, because it's all here and now for you. So again, your passion, your interests, your curiosity, what attracts you is the indication of you turning the dial, in a sense, to what kind of information you will synchronistically receive by being in that state of attractiveness or curiosity to particular ideas and subjects.
And I guess using the moon as a reflection of the energy that's coming from your world also gives us something physicalized to focus on. And then you can pay attention to your state of being and just allow whatever needs to come to you and is relevant for you to be received at that moment.
Yes, we have provided you with another layer, another level of a permission slip that connects to our vibration to allow you to tap into it and make it easier for you by tapping into it to explore other dimensional realities and other layers and levels of consciousness, intelligence, and information that exists within the universe or the multiverse.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
This is a practical question about manifesting. If a person desires a new car, and is the idea that you become the person who has that wish fulfilled, or is it more the idea that, like, that's more of an old-fashioned way of looking at?
It's an old-fashioned way of looking at it because, again, you have to be careful about whether or not your desire is a true need or it is just an egotistical want. The idea, again, is that if you are following the instruction manual, the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can, with no insistence or assumption of the outcome, and remain in a positive state no matter what occurs to get the benefit from it, then what you need will synchronistically come to you in perfect timing if you truly need it. The idea is to let go of some of the wants because you don't always know that what you want is what you truly need at that moment. Sometimes they can coincide, but very often they will not, because you really don't have a clue what the idea of the ideal outcome or manifestation would really be for you at that moment. So you can be open to the idea, to use your example, of the manifestation of a vehicle, of a car, but also have to be open to the idea of letting your higher mind bring you what you actually need and being willing to explore the possibility that you may not actually need that car, even though you may want it. The idea is that when you're on a certain level, the things that are commensurate with that level will come to you if they are what you need to allow you to continue to act on your excitement. So if a car is something that you actually need to be allowed to continue to act on your excitement, then such a thing will happen in some way, shape, or form. Even if it comes down to the idea that someone will always be there to give you a ride if you don't have the car yourself. It's always going to be what's the path of least resistance. So be open to the idea of any form of the manifestation that allows you to do what you need to do. It doesn't always mean that the car has to be actually yours. It can be, if that is the path of least resistance, but don't insist on it because you don't know that that actually is the thing you need at that moment. When you relax these insistences and assumptions about how these manifestations should occur, then they will occur as they need to occur, because the bottom line, as you say, the whole point to it, is to simply allow you to continue to flow in the direction most quickly that actually is your path of least resistance.
Yeah, it really does involve changing our relationship to needs versus wants.
Yes.
And that's almost like a maturity thing too.
It is.
Because I know when we're younger, we really feel like we have to have this thing, and
I know. And remember, everything is already here. You just have to match the vibrational frequency of it to allow it to become visible. But it has to be relevant for you in your life at this particular moment in order for the manifestation to occur. And it is a maturity issue, because if you understand how things work in a more mature way, you will understand that while sometimes your wants and your needs may coincide, the idea to understand is that if you always get what you truly need, you will always feel fulfilled. Whereas sometimes when if you get what you want, you may not necessarily feel fulfilled because your wants and your needs don't always align.
Yes, that is definitely an old story on earth of people chasing success or chasing things that they think will fulfill them, when in actuality, the real determiner of whether something satisfies you is whether it's something you need as opposed to something that you want.
But the thing of it is you don't even necessarily have to analyze what you need, because the idea is that it automatically comes to you through the organizing principle of synchronicity. It will always bring you exactly at that moment what you need. Even if what it brings you is something you don't prefer, you have to know that it's there for a reason that could serve you. And that's why the fourth point of the formula is so important, because if you simply remain in a positive state, even if something is manifested that you don't prefer, you'll be able to use what you don't prefer in a way that you do prefer. You'll learn the lesson as to why it's there. You will learn the knowledge and information you need at that moment from why it's there. and it will then disappear more quickly because you've been willing to accept it as something that needed to be in your life at that moment so you could use it in a positive way to gain insight and knowledge into yourself, and that's what will allow you to accelerate forward.
Okay, thank you. Also on the idea of the splitting realities and some of the challenges that individuals are facing right now, one idea that has come up over and over again is a very distinct difference in some people's perspective on keeping other people safe during the pandemic through wearing masks and others who don't.
Yes.
And the individuals that prefer to wear masks and prefer to help keep other people safe they're having reactions to the people who don't hold that perspective. And their curiosity is, why do the people who don't want to wear masks keep showing up in the reality of the people who do want to?
Well, again, first and foremost, you always have to understand the actual reason why someone may choose to do what it is they're doing. Many people who choose not to wear the masks may not necessarily have a positive reason for doing so. Some might, but many do not, as many people are not aware of the belief systems that they're holding on to and don't necessarily realize that they may be making choices from a very self-centered negative position and not necessarily thinking that they're connected to anyone else's experience. But the idea really is that you're still going to see and attract into your life people for a while that may have polar opposite vibrational incompatibility with you, because that's simply the nature of what's going on your planet in terms of the splitting into different realities. But please remember that just because you can see them doesn't mean they can affect you. You are in your own reality, but still capable of looking through a glass wall that separates your reality from their reality. So just because you can see them making choices that you don't prefer doesn't mean they have any effect on you unless you go into the fear that they do. So the idea is to recognize that, again, you will observe alternate realities for quite some time to give you an opportunity to act as a living example, to give them other options and other choices that they could choose. But it's not necessary for them to choose those things just because you want to exist in a reality that prefers something different, because you are in a different reality with your different preference if you understand that there is a glass wall between you through which you can see them and they can see you, but you can't really affect each other unless you succumb to the vibration of their reality, and then you wind up on the other side of the wall in a reality you don't prefer to be in. So for now, you can shift back and forth, and it gives you an opportunity, if you prefer something more positive, to see the negative choices, to use them by comparison and contrast, to make it clearer by comparison and contrast what it is you do prefer, as opposed to the choices that others may be making that are not compatible with your preference. This will continue for a while, but in the years to come, you will see them less and less. They will see you less and less. We cannot determine specifically exactly when you will no longer see them as a group, but you may start to find that certain individuals will no longer be perceived in your reality as you go along, and perhaps no longer than about 20 to 30 of your years from now, you may find that you're existing in a reality that no longer perceives vibrational incompatibility of those individuals at all. But again, it will be different for different individuals, different groups, and for the collective whole as to exactly how that timing works out when you no longer perceive entirely the idea of other parallel realities that are vibrationally incompatible with the one you have chosen to participate in.
So, in being able to respect the idea that there is a glass wall between you and another individual that may have a different belief system,
yes,
and simultaneously, if that person is insisting and thrusting themselves into your reality and, you know, in a sense of endangering your safety.
No, they're not. That's what we're saying. Just because you can see them, just because they keep manifesting and you're able to observe them, doesn't mean they're in your reality.
So if someone's walking by you and they cough and they have no covering on and they're potentially polluting your air, how does that relate to the glass wall, and how should you respond to that so that you're not saying, oh, that glass wall doesn't exist and I'm totally not safe, but at the same time respecting science and physics.
Well, again, you have just said it yourself. You have to understand that whether or not you succumb to the fear that they're going to affect you means you're on their side of the glass wall. But the idea also is to act as a living example, and sometimes that does sometimes require a communication, a conversation, to help them understand that maybe other ways to look at the situation in a more positive context of interconnectivity with all individuals. Because most of the individuals who have expressed the idea of not wearing the mask on your planet have expressed it as an intrusion into their rights. But the idea is that they're not understanding in the holistic connective sense that it is not really about them. It's about the idea of them carrying it to other individuals who don't necessarily have a say in their choices. So the idea is that when people understand that there are other people who may have belief systems within themselves that make them susceptible to the idea of the virus, it is the idea of them taking care of and looking out for other people in choosing to observe the conditions and the masks and the social distancing, because they are then acting as guardians of others who may not be aware that they may have belief systems that would make them more susceptible. So it's about going from a more self-centered perspective to an idea of a more global perspective of looking out for others. And by those having conversations and enlightening them in that way, they may decide to understand that it's not just about them, but it's about the whole community. And the idea, of course, is that you still have to allow them to choose what they're going to choose if they're going to hold on to belief systems that are more focused on themselves. And in understanding it and doing it that way, then you can understand that just having that conversation doesn't make you susceptible, and there's no need for anger. It's just a matter of education. It's just a matter of enlightenment. It's just a matter of providing a different perspective that gives them the opportunity to choose a different path. But you also have to understand that you can't insist that they do. Because if you are secure in the reality that you have created for yourself, then there is no anger or force necessary in getting them to change their mind, because you understand then that they are in a different reality and cannot really affect you. And those that then are susceptible to them have also chosen realities where they may choose to fear that they are susceptible to them, and you have to let it play out. So the idea is a balance point between the understandings of what is true for your reality, how you act as a living example to give others an opportunity to change into something more positive, but you also have to let it go when they choose not to, because it's none of your business what they do, because you don't know what their life path is and what it is they may need to experience in order to learn the lessons they need to learn.
So in a sense, it's created a heightened sense of recognizing the glass wall and recognizing the degree to which you honestly believe that you are, in a sense, on the other side of the glass wall.
Yes, and the behavior that goes with that knowledge. Because if someone approaches someone else in anger or fear, then that's a definition and an expression of the idea that you don't really know that you're on the other side of that glass wall.
And that's a big paradigm shift for us, the idea that you can be seeing things in your reality that are not what you prefer, and yet it's actually a separate reality. Maybe that wasn't an ability we had before.
You have that ability now, which is one of the reasons why we're explaining the structure of existence to you, because, as we have said many times, understanding the actual structure of how existence works is what will give you the clarity and the ability to be able to operate in the reality you prefer, while still having some degree of observation and interaction with realities that you don't. So now it's time for you to wrap your minds around the idea and understanding of this structure, how things are created, and use it to your advantage instead of succumbing to the fear and therefore giving up the idea of your self-empowerment and where you know you truly stand.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate that new understanding, because it can help a lot in observing the changes that our society is going through.
It can, if people allow themselves to understand. Yes.
Thank you so much, Tadeo. Really enjoyed our communication.
Hope
everyone else did too.
As always, our passion and our pleasure and our unconditional love to you all.